Alex here with another video on high conflict child custody. This video is going to be on alimony. It actually has nothing to do with child custody, but because I've had some questions to cover this, and I have also divorce cases do tend to have children involved, so alimony could very well be a part of your child custody case if you have a divorce going and there's children involved. Alimony, it didn't apply in my case at all, and I just want to cover some overarching principles. I think the reason people get so angry about alimony is they don't know how powerful it is. And I feel as though if people knew how powerful alimony was, they could make a more educated decision about it. And if you don't like it, you can act on it. I mean, if you don't want to be supporting your spouse and she suddenly just loses her job and doesn't want to work, you know how alimony works, you can take action. You can divorce right then and there before it becomes an issue. But I think a lot of people just don't know. They just don't have a clue as to how it works, and so when it hits them, it feels extremely unfair. So I'm hoping here that I can give people, you know, the principles behind alimony, and you should consider it before you get married. And if you do get married, you should, and you don't want to be paying alimony to each other, then you should both have an agreement that you both work. And if that agreement gets broken, one side decides I don't want to work anymore, then you either accept that and accept that you're going to be paying alimony, or you say no and you get divorced. It sounds mean, but you know you're gonna have all the knowledge as to how this is supposed to work. Starting with this video, hopefully people are more understanding about why it's there. So alimony was really something from the old days when the husband would work and provide for the family, and the wife would have children and care for the children. And the problem with these situations is it created a power struggle between the husband and wife, where not in all cases, or in some cases, an abusive husband would be able to continue to abuse the spouse because she knew that if she left him, she would have no money. She would be completely and totally destitute and with no ability to earn income because she hadn't been working for years or decades. Not all husbands use this, but some did. And the principle was this: you should stay with somebody because you love them. And your kids should see an example of a husband and wife who love each other. And if you have this dynamic where some people are staying with their spouse not because they want to, but because they're forced to, it just creates an unhappy situation. And if the person that's imposing, if the husband that's oppressing the wife, because this is how it was back then, this was the situation. If the husband was oppressing the wife and he didn't care that he was oppressing her, and he didn't care that his children were seeing an example of an unhappy marriage, then it was just a sad situation. So this was supposed to level the playing field, not so much out of fairness, but more out of the principle of, fairness does matter, but more out of the principle of, if a wife doesn't want to stay with her husband because whatever situation's going on, abuse or whatever, she should be able to leave, and she should be able to be supported financially for whatever she's contributed to the marriage. So, if she's contributed, 8 years of caring for the children, that's supposed to be worth something. So that's what happened, is it just made it so that you wouldn't have to stay for the money. Now, of course, a lot of wives ended up staying for the money anyway, because the problem is there was no guarantee that you were going to get alimony, because you never know. Judges make mistakes, attorneys get involved, you might get a bad attorney, your husband might get a great attorney, all this stuff is still scary. But at least now it's there, and it's something that's supposed to provide for one party when the party isn't contributing money, but rather cleaning the home, or staying at home and caring for children and such. So you should know that in modern times, a wife could end up paying the husband, because nowadays women do work, and there is a chance that a woman's working and the man is staying home. He's a stay-at-home dad, and in these cases, alimony could be ordered. It can be ordered that the wife pays the husband. I think they call it palimony. So here's I'm going to put everything down into a nutshell. This is an agreement. When you marry your spouse, alimony is an agreement that if one side wants to leave the other, they shouldn't be financially ruined for making that decision. And the reason behind that is because people should stay with each other because they love each other and they want to be with each other, not because they're afraid of being left homeless. That's a bad reason for a person to stay in a relationship, and that's exactly what would happen if you have a case where you have a couple that's been together for 10 or 20 years and one side never works and the other side does. Now, some people will counter and say, well, what about my ex? She doesn't work because she's a bum. Or my husband is a loser, he's a deadbeat and he can't hold a job. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video. Alimony doesn't look at these things. So you need to look at them. You, understanding how it works, need to consider this before you marry someone that you think isn't going to work and that's going to bother you. If you don't mind that your husband works or that your wife doesn't work, if you don't mind, and then you go into the marriage and you divorce later, you shouldn't mind that you have to pay alimony because you know how it works and you went into the marriage not caring that your spouse wasn't working. So all this nonsense about, oh, they're a bum or they cheated on me or whatever, none of that's relevant, really. It's not. So when you go in with this mentality and you're okay with it, then you need to be okay with paying alimony because it's no longer a surprise. Now that you know that how this works. You don't have to agree to marry someone, and you don't have to agree to stay with someone who's not working. So on that same note, if you do get married to someone and you both agree that you both want to work and you both want to contribute to the finances, and then somewhere through the marriage they just decide they don't want to work anymore or whatever, I mean, that's your time to decide right then and there. Is this enough of a problem for me that I want to split up right now before we end up having to deal with this alimony issue? Or not, if you decide, no, I love my spouse and they're just they're on hard times and I don't want to abandon them, and that's what marriage is about, staying with your spouse when they're in hard times, and you think, they're sincerely having issues and they're not trying to exploit you, and you stay with them, and then 4 or 5 years later you're divorced and you have to pay alimony. Don't be pissed off about it because you made the decision. You decided that's what you were going to do. Now, there's all kinds of considerations that are taken when alimony is decided too. So if somebody's been working most of the time and they stopped working like right at the end, the court can take that into consideration and they can order alimony for a shorter period of time. They're not going to say, oh, she's unemployed now, so you have to pay 10 years and you have to pay almost all your money. They don't do that. And if they do, you should get that corrected on appeal. But yeah, if you've been with somebody for 10 or 20 years and they're not working the whole time, and then they leave you, or they cheat on you or whatever, and you're pissed off because you feel it's unfair, that's something that you knew, hopefully that you knew from the beginning, and it's just not right to right at the end say, I call foul, I don't want to pay. It's just not right. So with that being said, there are couples that work, when they're going through their marriage and they work the whole time and then they divorce and the court doesn't order alimony because you were both working. Now, I think there's still issues where the incomes are disparate, and that can be relevant. Like if the wife works, as a waitress and gets the husband through medical school, and the husband and they split up, even though they're both working, the court can still order alimony. And you could argue that the wife didn't have to support the husband through medical school. If she was single, she could have gone to school and become a nurse or a doctor herself, and that was the sacrifice she made. That's where this stuff comes into play, is they're trying to take away the exploitation of one side abusing the other. They're trying to take that away, and it did happen in the past. Somebody would use their spouse to better themselves, and then they'd say, see ya, or I'm going to do what I want, I'm going to sleep around, and now you can't leave me because if you do, you're going to be homeless. So I'm trying to just get people to understand, and so many people hate on alimony, but I'm going to go right back to where I started. You don't have to get married to somebody who's not going to work. You don't. And if you're married to someone and they decide that they don't want to work anymore, you don't have to stay with them. So really, if you hate the way this works, you can take action to prevent it, either by not getting married or by getting out of a situation that's exploitative. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope that I'm probably going to have some interesting comments below. That's my piece on alimony, and I do think it serves a fair purpose. With that, I'm going to end this video.